Hi, welcome back to Creatio Tech Hour. My name is Lina, and today Dmitry joins me for a new Tech Hour session.
Hello.
Hi Dmitry, it's
Hello.
good to have you here. So we will talk about a very exciting topic. It's been a while. We probably all missed our Tech Hour sessions. And what we're going to talk about is the three Creatio releases, 8.01, 8.02, and 8.03. The most important highlights from those releases we will cover today, showing you what you can do with the new amazing tools. So we will split our session into kind of two parts. I will cover the no-code aspects and the things that were added to the Freedom UI Designer. Most of the things that were the new features that were added to the Freedom UI Designer. And Dmitry will cover development topics.
Yeah, and some technical topics related to performance, new development changes, working with applications, some about Sql Scripts. So maybe those who are programmers and developers will be interested today at the last half of our session.
I mean, if you're a developer, I think you should watch the Freedom UI portion as well, because we are going in that direction and moving into a lot of things that you can do with a click of a mouse button versus coding. So knowing what you can do with the tools is important, but definitely the second part, that's what you would be more interested in. So let's start. Okay, so the first thing that I will cover is the things that were added to the Freedom UI Designer in preparation for the session. I've made some changes to the section that I want to show and the features that are available. Now, I will start with this page and basically the things that you can do with the section list. So last time we covered the Freedom UI Designer was in February, and there's a lot of things that have been added to the list. So previously in the list, what you could do is basically just add the columns, and that's where the functionality stopped. Now, you can still add the columns, obviously, that never went away, but what you have is you can save the changes, the list settings for all users, and you can then reset them to default settings. So if you remember Section Wizard, you could override the settings for other users. That was an option, but there was never an option to go back. So once you made the changes, you were stuck with them. So now you do get an option to reset to those default settings, and you can go back to the original settings. So you got that functionality expanded. Again, with certain permissions, you will be able to save this too for all users, obviously. Other things that were improved in terms of the list. You can make changes within the list itself, right? So you can edit. So the section list became editable lists, and you can modify the records. You can also, basically with a click of a navigation left, right, with mouse, not mouse keys, but with the keyboard, you can switch from one column to another. So if you have a large list and you want to move up and down, you don't have to do this with a mouse button. It's easier that you can now, similar to an Excel file, you can work through the list that way as well. You also get the freeze or hide options for an individual column. So you can have those columns that, again, similarly to Excel's, where you can freeze your panes. And so if I freeze my columns and I will add more, and they will, now we're not limited by those numbers of 23 rows in the 23 cells that we got before, right? So that was usually the limitation. Here you can add all the columns that you need. I'm just gonna throw them here.
So finally we can scroll our grids to right.
Yes. So, and you can do it with the mouse button as well, as you can see, and with the not with the keys and with the mouse button. But
and we have frozen columns, so it makes it comfortable to look at.
Yes. So you can see I froze my column created on, so it remains on the left-hand side. But the columns that were not freeze, that remain unfrozen, so they will move away if I need to go into the columns that are off the page. Yeah.
Very good.
So, and then if you want to, you can unfreeze them, unpin them, and as you can see now, I'm moving from one side to another. So other things in terms of the list, you also get the auto numbering here for the records. Yeah, it's a little thing. Yeah, so let me add just another record so you can see that it's gonna get a 2 there.
Is it a data grid feature? It's not in database? Possibly it's just client side.
Yeah, I think it's client side. Yeah, I don't remember that being a database.
Because developers will be definitely interested if we have some kind of numbering, so how we can change it, how we can program it. It seems to be just a tool of a data grid representation.
Yes, I believe so. Right.
Previously, Creatio had no auto-numbering columns at all in client side.
Yeah, that's true. Now, it's taking, for some reason, a little bit longer for me to load. Let me try to refresh this maybe one more time. Some of the fields seem to be just loading a little bit longer. Just let me click new one more time. Oh, there it is, as you can see on the second attempt. So, for example, this is proposals, proposal 02, and so on. I can select some values. And once I save it, again, as you can see, it starts to number the records. Again, it's not the auto numbering in the sense that that's the number of the record, right? Because right now, as you can see, the order of the records is kind of like it's a descending order rather than ascending, and so
you can just click on the column and see.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So now it's clear.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the record. It's just so we can scroll down and clearly see what record that is in this particular list. Okay, right now. So that's the main changes about that happened to the list. And again, remember, section lists and other lists are actually the same, right? We moved away from this definition of a section or a detail list, and it's now just a list. So whatever features you're getting here, if you open the record and you have a list somewhere here in your tabs, those features will be available there as well. So there is no limitation in that regard. The features work exactly the same. So
looks very impressive. And anything else about editable data grids? I just found that now we have improvements in its editing, and we can submit changes made in several rows as one save operation, or we can cancel them. So if you do some changes, and so then you do a lot with other records, then you can commit them at one operation, something like this.
Just don't remember what do we do to save.
Probably it's performed automatically already.
You also get the refresh button. So that's something that used to be the tool that you had to download on the marketplace. Yeah, this wasn't saved though.
Okay, let's go on.
So this is what concerns lists. Let's look at the features that you get mostly, I guess, that you can mostly utilize on the form pages. But again, we are moving away from that definition. And we have added the gauge. So you probably noticed that, but now gauge is also available. That element got some very exciting expansions to it. If most of these haven't changed much, the metric, the chart, they still pretty compatible to what you got in Creatio 7. But here with the gauge, I think it's a small thing, but it's an exciting one. You can finally change the colors of the gauge. I know this is a silly thing, but a lot of people during the training ask, can I change the color, basically the color combo of the gauge? And you had to say no, and they're like a little sad. So let me
now
look.
it will look a bit more funnier.
Yeah, you can have very crazy color combinations. So let me load this in the Freedom UI Designer so we can see exactly how this works. Here is my budget gauge. again, the setup that is compatible to what we had in the 7, all the same fields, the same logic. But here in the scale, again, it's still it's 3 periods, right, 3 small pieces, but you can set the colors from them. So you can do purple to coral to red, something like that. So now the color is up to you.
So it looks like in previous version user interface for gauges, so like same.
Yeah, that's the only thing that was added besides the gauge itself. Obviously that wasn't available in the original Creatio 8.0 release, so the gauge was added as well, but we expanded the functionality of the gauge in this tool. Previously it was more limiting. Now, what other things do we have that weren't available before and that maybe are familiar to you but are improved? So another thing that has been improved is the action. In the action panel, notice how now you can select the channels that you want to display. Again, this is a small thing, but before you would get all the channels whether you want them or not on the display. But here, if you add an action panel in Freedom UI onto the Freedom UI page, you can select whether you want the call option, whether you want the feed message, maybe you don't care about them, and things like that. So you can uncheck all of them, you can check the ones that you actually need. So that's a small change, but nonetheless, it gives you a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, and doesn't represent these contents of the items created, or just channels that we can use for creating new pieces?
So here, if you look,
we can collapse them.
Yeah, you can collapse the. I have collapsed this.
Finally.
You could collapse. In the Freedom 8 you couldn't.
I think that in previous version, in 7 user interface, we had no chance to make it less size. And
at one point you could. Well, right now, okay, I don't remember when that started happening, but yeah, that's a good point. So you can collapse it and see how this panel is now much cleaner. So you can only include the things that you actually need. Here it is.
And less confusing for users who don't know how they should create steps for cases.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. So that's the small improvement with the Actions dashboard. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is another element that has been added. And this element that you're seeing on one of my pages already, let me go back and show you where this one.
Seems to be a slider.
Yes, it is a slider. It was added to inputs. So it's a new type of input that you can add. Once it loads, I'll be able to show you that. And here it is. It's under inputs. Oh, went off screen. Here it is, and here's a slider. So this can be configured for any fields that contain numbers. So if it's data that's represented in integers or decimals, you can work with that. You can change the style of it. Again, for example, you can do warning, something red. Maybe we're going over budget. So you can set up your minimum value and your maximum value. Since my input is for an age, I decided that, well, I guess maximum could be 80, but we can go to 100 again. And then basically if you, and let me show you where the data is coming from. So I have this section proposals, which has a contact in it, the person who creates this proposal within the system. And what I'm using is the age. Sorry, not related objects, but age here. And actually, as you can see, once I'm in the contacts field, I'm limited by my the integers that I have, so the data that could be used. And so what I'm doing is I'm displaying the age of my contact. That's the data that I have right now, and I cannot modify it. So as an input, it always takes the data from the other record, right? And so if I need to go and change my contact's age, I will go into the contact record. That's how I would modify it. I would not modify it within this record. So let me again.
This slider seems to be a tool to display something like a completeness. So if you have something like a 100% full, then you can display that it's half full, or just a quarter, or maybe almost full. So you can easily see it.
Yeah, that can be another use case scenario for it. So it's similar to, in a way, to a gauge, but without having what is considered kind of like the midpoints, right? In the gauge, you have what is a good, semi, okay, and bad.
So no periods here.
Yeah, no division of that. And this is, as you can see that, for example, I used my own age, so.
Is it editable?
It's editable if I go to the context data, so I have to edit the data.
Yeah, it reads data not from the main entity, that's why we have to change it somewhere just to be...
Yeah, because it's in input, so it's not part of this record, I have to go into...
It's quite smart that we can get data in connected entities.
Yeah, and so inputs, as you know already, we can't change them. They come from some other data source, and you have to modify it at the source. So I have to go into my birthday and modify my birthday, basically. So if I change for example, the year. Oh, I didn't. Let me do that. See, as you can see right away, I can see that the age.
1 year younger.
Yeah, wishful thinking.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so let's go to the next element. We already covered gauge, we covered the action panel, and we covered the new input. Now, what I want to talk about is more things that have been added in terms of these lists and how you can work with them. So this is where we get a little bit more technical. So you have two types of lists. You have a regular list. Oh, this is an expanded list as well. Oh, here, tasks. So I have a regular list here. I have an expanded list here, and I'll show you what the main difference is. If we talk about very fast about this, the main difference is list will just display the records and you can open them, but the expanded list will allow you to also create the records. So this plus sign, you don't have to create any other buttons in the system, and this plus sign will be, you can assign the action, open new record, which record, and so on. So basically, if you want something very similar to a detail, if we're talking about in Creatio 7 terms, that's what this is comparable to a detail. Why we are not saying that this is a detail, but rather a list? Because it doesn't have to have a relationship really to this particular record. So there's your freedom. Before, you had to have some sort of relationship between records. Here, you don't need to have that. You can establish it, but again, that's optional. Now, the expanded list is available here under components, and you have the refresh button, which allows you to refresh. You can select what this button does. It doesn't have to be just a new record, it can be something else, and you can even change this icon, so really it can be more than, as you can see. You can launch a process from it, but by default it will give you a plus sign, and you are able to open a new record from, for example, my request expenses. Now, this is what has been added that was not available in the original release, and even, I think, up to even 2 or 3, so this is one of the latest releases. Which columns values to set. So, for example, if you wanted something like a detail from before, right, when I create a new proposal, I want to enter an expense for it, I would need to set up this, which column to set value, because I'll need to auto-populate the proposal ID to create the relationship. Otherwise, I will create the expense, it will not show up here because it's not related to this record. So
this is how we can create something that we call details in Creatio, standard details. So we can fill some connected field, and that's how it will be filtered to see connected values.
Yeah.
So standard details still can be done like this.
Yeah. So basically, as you can see, in the list portion of the element, I am defining which records to show. It's data. We were showing the relationship. In proposals, this is ID. In the request expenses, I've used one of the objects I already had. It's proposal. So, and this is how it's linking. Let me show you how. If I go to expenses, click on the plus sign, enter the amount, additional, save, go to expenses. Here it is. Here it has
the standard detail behavior.
Yeah, but it's not limited to that behavior. Again, it doesn't have to be new. You can add something else. Here you have other actions as well. You have export to Excel, you have import data, so more actions than a regular list. Because as you can see, regular list doesn't have those actions at all. If I wanted to create a new task, I had to put a button, right? So if I want to work with activities that are related to proposals of some sort, I can open these activities, but to create a new task, I have to put a button. And let me show you that from the technical standpoint here. It is a button and it is a completely separate element. Now, for buttons.
All we have here, it's so it doesn't require any coding so far. So we can run processes, we can create different types of records, we can preset some default values for created records.
Yeah.
So developers maybe having nothing to do here.
No, I think you will, in just a couple of minutes, you'll tell them what they still can do, because there's still plenty of things that you can do in Creatio, but a lot of things have been available now to analysts, no-code experts, citizen developers, so we're being happy here. my team is happy. So in terms of buttons, the button functionality, besides the kind of like the small style thing that it has been expanded, like size, you can change the size of a button because maybe buttons need to fit on different parts of your interface, right? So you can make them smaller, you can make them bigger. That's pretty nice improvement. Now, what we have added is ability to add menu items to a button. And this is actually pretty cool because you can put so much under one button now. So let me actually show you this kind of like as a solution already. So I have this button, new task. And if I click on it, here it says open new record, activity, and so on. It will create a new activity. If your object, the object that you're trying to open a new record with, has multiple pages like activity section, it will show up here. So I have task, I have call, I have email, those will show up. This create contact is an additional menu item. Under this create contact, you also have another kind of like menu item. So you can have menu items inside of the menu items under the same button, and all of those can do different things. So what do I mean? This will create a new task. So for example, task, test, save. Now, if I click create contact, I programmed it to open the record of a contact. So let's say I'm going to create somebody as Travis. New contact, Travis, he is going to be an employee. Here. And the third thing that I have under create contact, these are a little bit unrelated just because I was using the data that I already had in the system for demonstration purposes, but I even inserted you can launch business processes. So this currency rates, it's a web service where I can get currency exchange rate. So I have a process where I can enter the amount. Let's say I want to exchange 100 euros for US dollars. And as you can see, this is a process that has been launched. I have a auto-generated page. I have a user dialog, accept, yes, and so on. So here under where do you set this up? This is the menu item. So first I'm on new task. This is my original button, right? And it has a menu item create contact, and you can have multiple items like that. So it's not limited to one. Under this create item, I have my currency rates and so on. Even the currency rates, you can still go even further into the other menu item and so on. You can use icons if you want to, as you can see.
Cool. So previously, you should do quite a lot of coding in JavaScript to make the same in version 7 user interface. So now it's pretty cool and doesn't require coding at all.
Yeah, I know. The button question actually is one of the ones that gets asked a lot, to be able to add a button, and I always have to say no, I have to ask the developer. But now there's so much that you can do with buttons in Creatio 8 that this is very exciting for our people.
Yeah, sure.
So now one more thing that I do want to show, and that's kind of like going back to these lists as well. So we looked at an example where there was already a page associated with an object, which was request expenses, and I showed you that I can open a new record. Now, what if I decided I need to create this new detail from scratch, right? I'm not using any other pre-existing object, no replacing objects, nothing that has pages. Where would I start? Generally speaking, what you would do is you would go into the application hub. You would create a new data model. So
inside of your app.
Yeah, inside of your app, what you would do, you would go here and you would create a new data model. So you have objects and you have replacing objects, but that data model doesn't have a page. And so let's say I have these proposal participants, and I want them to add as a kind of like a detail onto my page. What do I do? So as you can see, I have added this as my proposal participants, and here it's telling me something on the right hand side. Please create a page because there is none to execute. So right away the system tells me that I cannot execute, this is not going to work. I need to create a page, and then it's going to open and create this page that will be connected to this object. So previously, you had to only choose objects that were created in Creatio 8, so to speak. It was not really working with the Creatio 7 pages, but now this is actually very easy. So I can click on the plus sign, or I can choose from existing, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's say I don't have any pages, so which one? Tabbed with page data. Let it be. So this will allow me to quickly create a page associated with this data model and then work with it. So this is my general information. I have some fields. So for example, I have my participant. I can do my proposal, for example. If I want to show this, I can make it read only, just so it's not. And that's it so far. This is a very simple object. For now, I've created the minimum fields that I need. So then I can save this.
Sometimes it takes a while, but
I'm working in cloud, so
it's not a big price for such comfort.
That's true. So yeah, running multiple things on the same laptop usually slow things down. But as you can see, now the page has been saved successfully. If I go back, proposal has one form page. Here it is, and I can work with it. So I can add it here. Again, if I open a new page, proposal participant, and so on. Proposal has one form page. All good.
So simply speaking, now we don't need any kind of section wizard or detail wizard in order to connect a page to an object. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. So that is correct.
So object now has its own kind of property which represents its page that could be used for editing one data row of an object.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So let me quickly save this and show you that that does work. Again, as you can see, I quickly modified that, and let me go back here. So this will finally work.
Some kind of no-code magic is going here. Yeah.
As always. No code is always like magic. So here are my participants. I can click on the plus sign. It will open a page. I can add somebody like Alex and click here and add my people participating in this proposal.
So we have practically no detail wizard for Freedom UI at all.
Yeah, again, detail as a concept is gone. So think of lists and think of these lists that can do more. They can be related to this particular record. They can be used as details, but they can show other information as well. So we have expanded.
And additional filtering capabilities are supported. I saw them when you set the details list setting.
Yes. So let me go back. Yeah. So first of all, if we set up the list, as Dmitry pointed out, I can apply some static filters to things as well that will be always there. If you want to, you can also do the folders and folder management for any list, really. So we couldn't do folders for details before. That was because, again, it was different from a section list. Right now there is no difference. So if you can do a folder management and folders on the section list, you can do this on any internal list because they're the same. That's the same thing. So they can be used in both ways. Again, small thing that you probably noticed, but I did not point out too much yet. It's how you can change tabs. Tabs got more options in terms of design. You can change the colors of the tab. It can be fully colored. It can be partially colored. For example, white. It's just like some of these were white text, so that's why it's kind of like disappeared.
So finally, customers who wanted to make different colors of pages now should be happy.
Yeah, I think any part of this page you can color into something else. So this makes people who love colors very, very happy. You can add also icons. Again, small visual improvement, but still makes it look nicer. Yeah, so again, this is a small thing that was added to the tabs. Now I have two more topics that I would like to cover, and then I'll give the platform to Dmitry. So another big thing that, well, it's kind of like a preview of a big thing to come, is that you can now design Freedom UI pages for any previously created section. And you can assign those pages to open, basically, for that object. Let me show you that, and then I'll show you how it's done. So if I go to applications, I already had this request section created, and if you attended any of the trainings, you know that this is what we usually do. This section was designed in the section wizard, but now that I click on the new, I get this Freedom UI page. This page has completely replaced everything I did in the section wizard. So how is that done? You can create and assign these pages to any object in Creatio. Let me show you where that it's done. So I have my replacing object requests, right? And if I open it in the object designer, there is one new property. Is it correct to say property here for pages?
Set of settings.
Sets of settings, yeah. So sets of settings called pages. And so this is basically where you can assign this new page to any object. So basically what you can do is design the page with, if I go into my pages, new request page, right? I just click on the new page, selected the data model as requests here, did everything. I didn't create a very complicated page, but this is how it looks. Here, data requests, all of the columns are created before, here they are, and I just quickly put a page together just so you can see the difference. And then after I did that, I went into the object designer, into these settings, and found this page and assigned it as a default page. In the future, this is going to be expanded. There's going to be not one page, as far as I understand, but many different types of pages you can assign per object. But this is how we're starting this transition into from older sections to new Freedom UI Designer, and this is probably one of the easiest ways you can do that. You're still using the same data, so the data model, but you are redesigning the page. And anywhere where this opens the request, it will open a new page. It completely replaces any other pages that there are there in the system.
So basically it can help to make a transition of a previously developed business logic and entities, sections into new Freedom UI user interface and having new benefits from it, like colors, like more powerful grids, and more powerful controls, containers, and so on, which is Angular based.
Yeah, so if you were thinking about going into the Freedom UI but didn't want to redo too much, you're still keeping your object, you just need to redo the page, which seems like a really simple trade-off. Well, depending. And the last thing, let me close this. The last thing, business rules. So we're starting to add business rule to the Freedom UI, and the business rules that we have currently, they're hidden under this button. Open business rule. Now, here probably maybe Dmitry can help me, because I do see that there is a difference between the business rule that's on the page and the business rule that's kind of like on the object. That's something partially code.
Yeah, it seems that both types of business rules can be managed here.
Mm-hmm.
And proposals, it's business rules that are stored inside of the object. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So this is what is stored inside of the object. And these ones are on the page business rules. So I'm assuming that they'll be applied to a degree. You can then make business rules apply to a whole object if it has multiple pages, right?
Oh yes, and also it seems that the object business rules are designed especially to manage data more than managing controls.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was probably another thing that a lot of the clients asked. Well, if I have multiple pages, do you have to redo them? Yes, the business rules. So now we do have two types of rules that only will be applied on the page or will be applied throughout the entire object. Now, for the ones that are applied on the page, this is what I can tell you about. In Creatio 08, it was in beta testing. Now we have two rules that are available that you can work with. You can hide elements and you can show elements. So now we have split those two apart. Because before you had to kind of like navigate, show elements on page and work with the condition to hide things. Now you have two separate business rules for that. So there will be more than conditions. If that's your question, there will be more. It's just we're slowly adding them. Now, right now, they only work with two things. They work with attributes, which is kind of like our fields. Don't confuse with the previous word attributes in business rules. This refers to fields. Here's my attribute status. That's the field equals new, for example, and then I'm hiding the expenses. So if it's if I'm on status new, then the expenses tab will be hidden. Now,
and just a question, and if the status will be not equal to new, will it be shown automatically?
So let me show you.
That's true.
Yes, of course. So for now, I've noticed there is one thing in terms of business rules. So yeah, let me change the status. Let's go to status new and notice here's my expenses. They're shown new. Sometimes I don't think the page has loaded.
So we have to wait.
Yeah. So at least for now, I did notice that sometimes you have to save and refresh and it will work. And sometimes it still work like immediately, right? So I change the status, immediately something changes. So not sure why is that. Maybe again, it seems like pages are loading a little bit slower. Maybe that's the reason. So let me see. So status still review, new. This is probably one of the examples where I have to refresh and then it's going to be hidden. So I save my status as new.
So this is kind of experimental feature. So you should use features setting in order to turn it on. Am I right?
No, actually in cloud I found that it was turned on. Yeah, but to a degree, I think in the documentation it said, so it does hide the content. That's again where it's kind of like, it doesn't hide the entire tab. It hides the content. If I change to declined, again, I have to save. Seems like, again, sometimes refresh.
It depends on condition which is set there, because this business rule seems to be working just when page is loaded. So you specially set it up to activate just during loading the page, so it's normal.
So let me show you. So from decline to new, it disappears. See this right away. But if going back to showing, that's I don't know. There still seems to be some lagging in the system. This is
maybe it was just designed so because we have a special business rule that will hide something if some condition happens. So unlikely to previously designed business rules at version 7. You see a bit different logic here, so you can practice, check, and that's why probably we have hide and show as separate business rules.
Yeah, true. Could be that hide behaves a little bit differently than I'm expecting because we did work with show. But do notice the improvement. Regardless whether you're using hide or show elements, you will get a lot more options. You can work with inputs, with charts, with components, and for components you can even do buttons, see menu items, lists. So here you will see all the components of the page. Sometimes certain components will have the same title, but will have different codes. So that's why we do put the codes. So if you have buttons that have new, but they have different codes, you'll be able to distinguish one from another. You also have your layout elements, and that's your flex containers, even expansion panel. So you can go really deep into designing this page, making sure that you're showing or hiding, for now, very specific things. And last thing, which is probably you can even do custom elements if you design anything custom. So you can work with them. Right now, I don't have anything custom, but in case that happens, you can work. Business rules can even work with them.
And in future, probably we should expect appearing other types of rules, like making fields required, making fields editable, not editable.
Yeah, that's all coming up in future releases. So definitely, we're not making the business rules functionality smaller. We're always expanding. As you can see, it's just not everything has been moved to the new release yet, hasn't been added. So this concludes the no-code portion of our release highlights, and let me pass the floor to Dmitry.
Yeah, now we will have some pause just to swap our places, and we will be back soon in seconds. Okay, we swapped places, and let's move on. So now we will talk a bit more technical stuff of Creatio. So we will go to work with system designers, some tools, and new features that appeared. First of all, I need to tell you some words about improvements made at Application Hub. You can go there using Application Hub link in System Designer, or, which is easier, you can go using Cogwheel. So Application Hub now finally has an option to export applications. Previously it was not supported. At version 8.0, now we have export feature available. Finally, we can make normal deliveries of our applications using Freedom UI features, and you can follow recommended development procedure, having separate environments for developer, test, and production. So export works very similarly as it worked with packages. So physically, it exports zip archive file, including several packages inside. And one of the package is a technical system package containing application properties. Others may include different functionality, including previous version 7 packages, so it works normally. So we have a difference in package export. Also, we have some additional improvements related to application names. So when we created an application, let's try to do something like this. So there were a lot of questions related to application names and titles. Here we have to specify our title, my super app. But once we started to use some special characters, extra special symbols, or even emoji, so we can do something like this. You see that application code appears, and it extracts characters only. you see that it gets part of the name and forms the inner application code, which is very important because package with the same name will be created and it should be only characters or digits or underscore signs. So that's how developers solved the question to make, from one hand, application code looks nice enough, and for another hand, to support special characters in application names, especially if you do something like marketplace add-on and your application name should be quite catchy and like market related, so look nice. Sometimes you need special characters for this. So here we have such kind of change which forms better application code, which is easy to guess how it works. Okay, we have much more and a lot of other technical changes made at Creatio. I will just try to point the most important of them. So, for example, when we work with installation of applications, or generally when we do installation of version 7 packages as well, so we can install from 5 existing packages. Now, Creatio improved its capabilities related to restoring of a previous state of the package if installation failed. In this case, our application is able to collect and save backup of the package before loading your new package, and it's possible to recover previous package state if loading was failed, and this feature is also supported at Workspace Console tool. So if you work with the Workspace Console in order to make your own way of continuous integration, continuous delivery, now it has new functions to perform this saving of a package backup, and then to make it possible to restore. Possibly you can find it at Workspace. Just a moment, I will show you this manual. So you can get full technical detail at releases notes. Possibly I need to find this, just a moment. Workspace. Not so lucky today, but maybe 802. Workspace Console. So we have some changes in Workspace Console utility, which is a command line tool for making different operations, and what partners mainly will be interested at, it's a transfer of changes between environments in automated way. So you can export packages automatically, you can import them, and now Workspace Console tool supports backup and recover operations of packages in case of failure. So it makes your delivery procedures much more reliable. We will also talk about reliability of changes today. Later I will show you additional features that appeared. Now we are covering 3 different releases, 801, 802 and 803. So it's quite a lot that we have changed on the platform, and thanks Lina to tell us about low-code features, which are pretty nice and colorful. So now we will go with the more technical stuff, which is probably not so easy to see. For example, I can tell you about a good tool related to automation, and it's BOP. Yeah. So we have some kind of performance improvements in 802, and these performance improvements will be important for those who run Creatio with big number of users, and in case if one user tries to perform a really hard query for the database, now it's possible to limit number of CPU threads used at database server to process this query, and which make a positive impact on the overall performance. So you can try to tweak it and check if you have such kind of situation when one user holds all your database, and now it can be prevented and make overall performance better. Also, we have some additional performance improvements when you have integration, and this integration mechanism often creates new sessions, and in case if it does it too often, more than 4 sessions in 1 minute, then Creatio performs quite smart move, and it starts to use existing sessions instead of creating new ones, which also gives good performance feedback and finally system works faster. So maybe it will be also interesting for you if you're involved in such of integration programming and you do often such connections, creating new sessions. So you may consider this setting in order to make it work faster. We have a lot of other tools that could be interesting, and now some more technical stuff. SSO, it's a single sign-on. It's the way how you can enter Creatio, and the single sign-on means using some kind of external tool, external provider, which will confirm your identity and allow Creatio to log you in. So previously, single sign-on was set up using configuration files, which was too technical, quite hard to do it at cloud conditions because you have no access to file system, and generally it's not so easy to do. So now it became easier. Single sign-on settings supported at Creatio now are fully available at graphical user interface, and which is also important, SSO settings are now saved at database, which is also good instead of file system level. So we can, you see that Creatio already has support for modern and well-known SSO providers like Okta, Azure, or ADFS, and we can create, you can also create your own custom and register custom provider, and if you will struggle with it, if you will experience difficulties, you may look at documentation. By the way, you see here we have a lot of articles. Let me show you. So for each type of SSO feature, we have good articles explaining in details how to perform it for Azure, for IDFS, and for one login, and to enable just-in-time user provisioning. And also, if you will have very unique and your own way of SSO provider, you can refer to the help of support team. They will be happy to help you. I will just quickly show you how this should look like. I would just imagine that I have some kind of service like this, test.com, let it be so. It's a dumb example, so it will not actually work, but it's just for you to see how in general you should do your steps. You save it, then you do it as your main provider, and if you do this way, save it, then a single sign-on feature will appear at your system. So when you will log off and then you will log in again, you see you have a SSO option to log in. If you have several ones, you can also choose which one you want to use to log in your users. So it's possible to use several. I'm still stick to name and password. Okay, so for those who use it in a way of kind of enterprise system, so maybe use of SSO settings, which made much easier, will be a very great plus. And of course, we have a lot of documentation now, and you can easily find them using these short links or just looking at documentation at Creatio SSO. So you can see all of the short explanations, and of course you can find full manuals for such kind of connection settings at Academy. Okay, let's move on, and we have a lot of other technical stuff today. So some improvements were made for mobile app. I'm not able to show it for you here, so just improvements related to possibility to disable. It's probably 802, yeah. Just no, just not so
here, yeah.
Correct. Mobile app. Okay, let's see. So some improvements made at mobile app. Now we can disable synchronization at start of the app. If you just start it too often, maybe it will be useful for you. If you don't need to do it so often. And also some improvements made during uploading multiple files. Now it's became possible. So generally mobile team continues to make their improvements and support solution. Also some improvements made at call center integration. Normally, as you see, I prefer to disable it because of excessive login, but generally you can use it, of course, and call center integration is set at your profile. So you can see here now, sorry. Here, call center parameter setup, and there are system settings for choosing type of integration of call center, and you know that Creatio supports asterisk, Avaya, and now we have some new features for such support. I know that Avaya integrations were improved, new versions of drivers now are supported, and some similar things were done for asterisk recently. So if you are a user of such kind of call center integration, you will be happy to know about it. Some new changes were done at email integration. We talk about personal emails, it's not marketing emails, and this feature, sorry, it should be somewhere here. Yes.
Yeah.
So now we have changes related to email listener. Previously it was called Exchange listener, mainly pointing users to work with Microsoft Exchange, but now developer decided to rename it just to email listener because it can be used as well for Google, for Office 365 and other types of email. So email listener is a new name for it right now. Of course, not only name, and we have some advanced changes at setting up of such mailboxes. For example, now you see such mailboxes have a full name displayed in the list of mailbox setup, which makes easier operating if you have several different domains at your company. And also we have a new diagnostic tool for mail connections, because here, sorry, yes, you can run diagnostics tool which performs a set of checks and checks availability of a web service. Now you see it's something is not so good at my environment which I'm running right now, but generally you see a lot of different diagnostics that can be started, and this makes much easier detection of possible issues that you probably have with your email, and that's how it makes life of a support team easier and those who do system administering of your environments. So it definitely shortens your time for fixes for your email integration if something happens. Okay, so some technical changes were done related to email integration. Now we have much more different types of error messages that are properly handled and displayed here. Luckily I have no one. But if it happens, you will see that your email integration is not working, but you will see quite clear error messages here. Such error handling and displaying was significantly improved in recent releases. And also some improvements made for stability, for reliability of email integration. And just a moment, maybe I will find it. No, not here. 802. Email management. So some of the improvements were done for stability now. Just a moment.
Oh, that's so they can handle the two-factor authentication?
No. It was for fail safe.
Email setup.
Yeah, probably here. No.
Yeah, we're in marketing, so a little bit higher. Here, email setup.
Okay, just related to email settings, along with additional reliability and restarting services, we have changes that are recommended. Now, it's not like mandatory, but it's strongly recommended to switch your Office 365 mailbox setup to work with OAuth. Basic authentication, which is still working, is considered as not safe and is recommended to be switched off and to make OAuth connection instead of it.
Yeah, and if you have basic authentication, you'll get this yellow box message that's going to say, that's the improvement in messages. Yes. Here at the top you will see a box. It's going to be yellow, not red, so it's kind of like more of a warning. But it will encourage you to do the changes.
Yes, and as usual, all of the information about such technical stuff like OAuth settings and so on is well explained at Academy, so you can find them in a clearly written article. So our technical writers did a big job for this, to make it so easy enough and just straightforward, just to do step by step, and you will finally reconnect your email boxes with auth and authentication, which is important for your safety and to make it more reliable.
Same applies to Google. We do have an extensive documentation on how to do that setup for Google emails as well. Actually, I have recently helped out our partners with that, and the article works. So you have to follow the article precisely, but it does work. It explains all the steps.
Yes, and even if you find some mistakes in the article, so you can do a feedback. Our technical writers immediately respond and if you find something very meaningful, they will modify articles to make it better, to clearly represent what you have to do. So thanks in advance for helping us to improve our articles. Some more technical stuff related to processes. So here, we have worked with process logs, and we have a lot of different information here. So process log is automatically archived, and starting from 803, we will have 1 month history of process log, then it will be removed. If you want to keep it longer, you can archive them, and you can set such settings at system setting. You can search for archive data on archive process log on deletion. So if 30 days pass, you can enable this feature in order to keep your process history longer, and archive will keep it up to 90 days. So expiration in archive is 90 days, and expiration in just a process log is 30 days. That solves the question and the problem of huge history of process logs, which is not so critically important, I think, and it makes and keeps high process log performance. So you may modify such settings if necessary, and that's how you can manage your process log history. Of course, it's a technical stuff, but it makes impact on the overall performance. So if you search for reasons why your processes are a bit slower than you expect, you may also look at this process archiving. You can see and check how big is your process log. Maybe it will help you to improve overall process performances. Some topics related to Freedom UI changes. In 802, now we have a Freedom UI components. Just a moment. So now at 802 we have possibility to use traditional or classic Creatio pages based on Ext framework to be set as a component into Freedom UI page. So you can keep your existing component which is already working, and you may use it at your traditional Creatio pages. Now you can put them into Freedom UI pages, and we have an article explaining how to do this. It's a very technical step for front-end developers, so a lot of JavaScript is inside, but it's just a new capability that you can use. And similar feature appeared in 803 for Freedom UI components based on Angular. So now you can create your own Freedom UI components using Angular framework. It's also a task for a front-end developer. We have articles, and they are just in process right now. So we will have this documentation available by link here, and that's how you can create also your own Angular-based components and put them as a custom component on your Freedom UI pages. So Creatio demonstrates that you can extend client-side even more than you have at rich Freedom UI features available in no-code mode. So if you really need it, like you need to show some kind of map or any other specific item on your page, that it's possible to be done in Freedom UI.
Perfect.
And now one of the last item which I wanted to show you today is a new capability related to Sql scripts. Possibly you know the common question, it's a fact that some Sql scripts, when executed, cannot be reverted. Sometimes it may be impossible to revert changes in case of failure of installation of a new version of a package. In this case, usually customer expects that, okay, we had some failure, we need to recover it as good as possible to the previous state. But due to the physics of SQL, some operations cannot be reverted at all. Now developers made a step towards to make it revertible, and this step is connected with the backward compatible property. So physically, of course, it doesn't change the real-life physics of SQL. For example, if you make a script that will drop a table, then if it runs successfully, you will not be able to recover it easily. So physically we have no changes for this. But if you make a script which you mark as a backward compatible, of course you should take into consideration recommendations how to build such script. Of course it will be not any SQL command inside, but if you do some script which you consider as quite safe and can be reverted, you can set backward compatible, and if all of such scripts are in your package and your package when installed is failing, then it will be possible to recover previous version of your package with having no error messages. If you will have at least one script which is not backward compatible, and in case of installation of such package, normal recovery will be, so it will try to recover, but it will show an error at the end that tells you that some scripts that were installed in a package that failed were not backward compatible. So it's just a trigger or just a sign for a user, for a customer, that something may be wrong. So it's just a safety feature. It's not really preventing you from doing something wrong, but in case if you do it according to recommendations, maybe your life will be safer, and maybe so if you do all of the packages in accordance of these recommendations of the backward compatibility, we have an article explaining how to do this. So if you do all of these steps according to such recommendations, or just you perform scripts that are safe enough, like you do scripts with updates which will not harm data if executed twice, or if you do not remove any database columns, or if you do not modify any database tables, something like this. So we have all of the list of such recommendations, like do not use triggers, do not modify database entities, it means tables, views, and so on. So if you follow such recommendations, then your scripts could be considered as quite safe and backward compatible. But it's just a software setting, so it doesn't really protect you if you, for example, do something dangerous, but set it as a backward compatible. So it's just an option which helps to mark scripts which are really safe. And if your package contains really safe scripts and no any dangerous script, then system will successfully revert your package installation in case of failure. So it's just to make it more reliable, to make it let's say well controlled, especially for marketplace add-ons, which are very critical to be installed normally, or in case of error to be reverted fully back. So that's maybe something good for those who do a lot with Sql scripts. So that's all for today. A lot of technical side. Of course, as usual, you can find full list of changes at Academy. You can easily find them at documentation. Then you go to releases info, then go into release notes, and for each existing release you may find full information, not only what me and Lina told you, full set of technical stuff with the correct links of documents and full articles, so possibly you'll be interested in going into details. Thank you for your time, for watching. Thank you for being and standing with us during this period. Hope to see you soon in our next videos.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be coming back soon, so stay tuned. And as always, we'll be answering your questions as well. Our team is helping us with that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.